Okay, so here we are in my men folder. This is the original image that I used to create Gold Bunny. This is as he was as I got him from Tumblr. It's quite a nice image, very artistic. It's what attracted me to it. I just saved it sometime in the past and thought, who knows, I might be able to use it. And, you know, good old Naked Spike brought up the Naked Spike bunny, and it just suited it down to a T to my series of naked bunnies for 2016. And I don't know what I'm doing. I'm obviously just staring at it at the moment, but hopefully I'm going to do something. This is it's a 500 by 637 pixel image that I got from Tumblr, as you can see in the title. And this is one of the few images that actually started in Lightroom. Lightroom has a really great develop module, what they call the develop module, and that's where you go to play with your image. And what you've got in the develop module down the right hand side of your screen are a great many of the tabs in Camera Raw. In fact, this is where I really became very comfortable with Camera Raw playing in Lightroom. If I was only doing photographs, if I was just a photographer, I think probably I don't know that you need to go out of Lightroom very often, unless you take really crappy photos and need to do a lot of playing with them. You can't increase sizes in Lightroom, but you can adjust the heck out of your images in Lightroom because you have access to Camera Raw, which is just a very powerful tool. The same deal here, your white balance, you have your auto buttons, you have all of your tone sliders that you can adjust individually, and you also have the actual the clarity, vibrance. Use the auto buttons, and as you can see, it gives a great result. I'm just going to leave it at auto. That's just showing you how it's actually warmed the image a little, because it's when I've set it to auto, it's just brought down the blues and put a little more yellow in it. It's also taken some of the warmth of the pink slider and moved it into green. You can play with that to your heart's content, or you can leave it as set. So I'm just adding, see, changing it to really green. Really depends what you're looking for. Then you can just go back to auto. And over on your left hand side is the history panel in Lightroom. It's got an image, a small image called the navigator of your actual image. So if you're working on a really big one, that navigator will give you a nice shot of your image so you can see what you're doing to it. In the history panel, it lists out every step that you do in Lightroom. And Lightroom is a non-destructive editing tool. The develop module in Lightroom does not change in any way, shape or form your original image. So if you go back to import, that dialog means that's the image as I imported it into Lightroom. So I downloaded it from Tumblr, and then I imported it into my Lightroom catalog, and then you can see each step that I have done. So I changed the white balance, and then I changed it back, and then I changed it again, then I played with it a bit, then I changed it back to auto. So you can step back in your history in Lightroom. The more changes you make, the more steps will be in your history, every step you make. So I've just hit auto tone. I'm going to up the exposure. You see on your left, you'll see the exposure, and it even tells you what you adjusted it by in the history panel on the left hand side. The other thing, I'm going to up the clarity to 100%, because what I want to do is get some real grit into this image. I want the grit that's in him, of the substance that they use to paint the model. I want that to really come up on my image. And also clarity actually has opened up the tones as well, because it sharpens all the edges of your image. I'm going to up the vibrancy because I really want to get the full value of the silver on his body and the metal behind him, and also that burnished bronze colour on his body, and a little bit more saturation for the same reason. I want to really get those tones in the colours, because it's almost a monochromatic image that I've started with. and I just want to pull up that nice orange because it's kind of like blood for a vampire, isn't it? Um, and that's what I'm looking for. So that's sort of about, I think, what I did in Lightroom. I don't know that I used the sharpen module tab is still there down further on the right, because but I don't think I actually did that in this image. Sorry, I don't remember. No reason that you can't. But I think I'm just was rabbiting on about what you can do in the history panel. You can undo everything that you do. Okay, so now I need to take it into Photoshop because I can't add layers or do anything else in Photoshop. So you've got three choices: edit original, which is the original photo that we started, that we actually brought in, imported to Lightroom, is your original photo. All of the changes that you make in Lightroom are written as what they call XML language. It's kind of like a little sidecar file, and they sit above or beside the image and they're tagged with it, but not affecting the original image. So if I just said open image, then I would get that image that I imported, and that's not what I want. I'm obviously still rabbiting on, but I can't. This is what I want. I want to open this image into Photoshop. Any minute now I'm going to do that. No, I'm still playing around. I must have thought you were extra thick. Okay, it's quite a dramatic change. There's those few little sliders that we've made in the develop module in Lightroom. In fact, I think I was yakking on about Lightroom. It really is, you know, if you were just doing photos, stay in Lightroom. I don't actually play in Lightroom develop much anymore because you know, I'm going to play in Photoshop, so I just start there anyway. So open up your image in Photoshop now. So we opened up edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments, and this is just showing you original. I did open up the image in Photoshop before and put it into my Gold Bunny file. That's my Gold Bunny TIFF file, and that's the image I've just opened up from Lightroom. My Lightroom is set to, when I open up images in Photoshop that I've played with in the develop module, they'll open as TIFFs, and they'll open at 240 pixels per inch, even though this image was originally 72 pixels per inch. It wasn't obviously not too bad of quality of image nevertheless, and that's probably because it was taken by a professional, obviously, or someone who knew what they were doing, because even having increased the size of it, the pixel depth, which you're not supposed to do, it hasn't actually added a lot of unwanted noise, because, you know, as I said, I wanted to add noise, I wanted that texture. And this is the image that I actually created earlier for my original file. What I did was go to image size, and I just upped the size, so I upped it from 500 pixels wide to 750, and that had my little link on so that it increased the height in proportion, and so that's the image that I got when I did that from the one that I imported from Lightroom. So now we'll go to Gold Bunny, and I've actually got all the layers turned off except for Spike's head in Gold Bunny. So that's the original image. I just put that there for you to see the size, how much I blew it up, and also the changes that I wrought just in Lightroom itself. And now that's the image that I was left with after I brought it into Photoshop and just increased the size. And the head that I found for Spike actually faces the opposite way. I could have swapped Spike, I could have swapped him around, but I didn't want to, because, you know, then you've got to play with that eyebrow and all that sort of thing. So what I did do instead was I actually swapped vertically, or flipped vertically, horizontally rather, my background image, my body. You can see that I've got lots of texture coming up from the just those few slides in Lightroom. The clarity slider is wonderful, particularly if you've got some good quality pixels to play with and good quality tones. So that's the head that I want to use of Spike, and it's actually already got all the layers that I've put on top of his head to make him look like that. Yes, there's, okay, so that's him swapped horizontally so that he faces the same way as the head I want to use. His face is actually gone because Spike's head didn't quite cover the facial features of the model, and I've simply used the smudge tool to get rid of the model's head once I've positioned Spike. I actually did this one without the dots because I hadn't thought of the dots then. It was just, I think, further on that I thought of the dots. And I'm just talking about the smudge tool there. Create a new layer, make sure it's set to sample all layers. Generally 50% I leave it at that, and generally normal, but you know, you can change the mode to normal, lighten or darken, and there's a couple of other ones there as well. Just experiment. Depends what you're doing. Because this is a pretty bright plain background, I really just got in and smudged it. No cloning, nothing, I just got in and smudged it using a normal brush and 50% strength. Then I merged it down into the original image. I don't know why, but I did. I'm becoming a little less picky about retaining my images, I have to say. You tend to build huge files if you keep all of your layers, and particularly because I play with smart layers a lot. I was actually merging things with smart layers, but my goodness, the files just get bigger and bigger, and if you're actually playing in it with a big file, you're over a gig before you know, and your computer's throwing its arms up in the air and saying, come on, this is rubbish, stop it, mummy. So this is Spike's head that I want to use, and you can see it's a bit orange, a bit pink. It's very nice. I liked it because big eyes, his lips are really prominent, his cheekbones are prominent, that nose is prominent, and you know, all the features that we like about Spike. So the first layer I've applied to him is a black and white layer. Click on that girl, that's the way. So probably just left it at the default or set it to auto. Once again, I filled the mask with apply image. I love apply image, and when I'm trying to just lighten. At this stage in my image, I would have just had my original bottom layer and Spike's head. Now that I'm actually going back and doing it, you can see all of the layers that are in this file are there to pick. And if I had them all open and I was doing it again at this stage, I would just pick like Spike's head and maybe the body. But we'll just leave it at merged. Set at multiply, that's actually the default that comes up, but you know, play with it. You never know what's going to have. I've often set them to darken. Hard light's another one I like to use. Occasionally screen. I seldom invert, but you know, try it. You just don't know what effect you're going to get, and that's the thing with Photoshop, it's all trial and error. Even when you use actions, you're going to go back and change, because it depends on what the image is that you're using. So that's, you can see I've lightened him a little bit. I've actually dropped it back to 61%, but I would have actually had him at 100% at this stage. But I've obviously, once I've put a few adjustment layers on top of him, and maybe I should have left it at 100% till I'd done that, I've come back and dropped him back to 61% to make them work better. The first thing I want to do, of course, he's got to be silver like the body beneath him. So I've actually just used a new layer and painted grey into it, and just I'm obviously rabbiting on about something there. Just click Alt and pick the picture. It's a bit hard to click Alt and just have the picture because it's a clipped layer, and if I unclip this one, I've got to unclip all those several dozen more above it. So just go into your lookup and pick a layer that looks kind of silvery grey, and say OK and use your brush and paint over where you want to be grey. I didn't paint, you see I've left some of his lips and a little bit down his chin. That was deliberate. That was kind of like, I wanted the underlying pink and around his eyes, his eye. I wanted that underlying original colour to shine through, because I'm going to use, introduce some orange. I actually also then, once I'd done this colour, I went and added noise because I want to add some texture. He's all quite smooth, which is what I'm usually looking for in my vampires, but in this instance I wanted that texture in his face to match his body because he's been painted silver and quite thickly in some places. So I wanted to try and match that, so I added some noise. That layer set to colour. Colour actually will help blend a painting, your painting quite nicely to, and that's my add noise. You just work out what you want. Generally set it at Gaussian and generally monochromatic, but again, it depends what you're looking for, so, play. And the next layer is labelled orange in a minute. I'll click on that soon. There we go. So it's labelled orange. What I'm doing here is just adding some yellowy orange tone just to bits of his face to start that matching with the bronze colour in his body. It's a bit subtle, you can't really see it. And it's set to colour as well. I probably should have set that, I don't think I did, I should have set that to normal so you could see how orange it was. And, oh excuse me. So I'm just clicking on that, that's a smart layer, and if you click on a smart layer it'll actually take you into a whole nother worksheet where you can play on it. Just another one of the beautiful things about smart layers. But the reason it's smart layer, if I'll hurry up and go and thank you, do the drop down. I made a smart layer to add a filter to it, and if we click on the filter gallery, if you don't make a smart layer you can't see the filter later on. And what I've done is added some sandstone texture. See, I've set it at 82% size wise and with a depth of 9 overall, and then I've masked out that image, that layer, by filling the mask with black. It's not on his body, it's just going to be where I paint it. So if I just would click on the layer, Alt and click on your mask, click, Alt, click, no, there we go. You can see where I've used a brush with white paint, even though the colours are the other way around, but you use white to paint back in the layer. So black hides the whole layer. So I filled the layer mask with black, and then I've used white just to paint back in where I wanted that texture that I'm applying. You see it's on his cheek and on his jawline and up a little bit on his forehead, so that's kind of trying to match what's on the body. Now I'm going to start adding some highlights to try and get that metallic shine to his face. And again, it's a little bit hard to see, but I've used white paint and I've reduced the opacity to 34%. It's abnormal. Colour doesn't work with white. Overlays often good with white. So you can see I've just used a mask to paint him where I wanted it. If you go up to 34%, you can see quite clearly where I've painted that in the hollow of his cheek and up there on his forehead. And I'll just go back to history to put it back exactly where I had it. So that's my first highlight layer, and I've simply used white paint. So foreground colour would have been white, and a soft brush. And do it again. I didn't click on that. This one is I didn't change the name of the layer there to tell you what I was doing, but I'm still playing with highlights. Okay, now this is to paint in his eye. The white of his eye is actually quite white, and what that layer has got a a charcoaly grey painted into it, and I've set it to normal but reduce the opacity to 13%, so just up that to normal 100. You see that? What I'm doing there is I'm changing the bright white of his eye white to a greyer colour. Just go back up to history, click it back to its 13%, and you can see that the whites of his eyes are actually a little grey now, which is a bit more natural looking. Now some more highlight, but this time I've put the paint right over his face and reduced the opacity on that layer. Now some vibrance. Again, these are all clipped layers, so they're only affecting Spike's head, not the rest of the image, because I'm working on making Spike's face look the same as the rest of his body. And now a bit of exposure, so you see the exposure, I've just bumped it to 34, and just touch down in the offset. Offset will give you that contrast back, it brings back your shadows and just sharpens your image. So lovely. And this curves layer should have been labelled dodge, because what it's set to, you can see I've just pulled the line up fairly evenly in the middle, quite high, and then masked out the filled the mask in with black. Then I would have used a soft brush with foreground white, but I would have reduced the flow to no more than 20%, and then painted in the mask where I wanted the effect of that curves layer to apply. And what I'm doing is applying highlights, and you can see I've applied some to the lower area of the image as well, but I've really highlighted, been highlighting Spike's face, as well as some of the background, just to get the that metallic shine happening. And I'm just explaining how you can fade the mask and use the feather tool if you wanted, but I hadn't done that. Now we moved on and using a curves layer as a dodge, or burn tool rather, that is adding shadows, some darkness, some contrast to his face. Once again, just pull down into the lower part of your curves layer, fill in your mask with black, then use your soft brush with white foreground paint, and probably 20% is even a bit much. Often for dodge, burn rather, you might find it better at 15. You can always of course reduce the opacity of the whole layer if you've gone a bit overboard. Back adding some skin pores, and I've actually drawn in some skin pores and added special effects to the layers. I'm getting carried away there. I added some drop shadow to the little drawings, because I'm just trying to add a few pores to match the rest of his body where the paint's filled his pores. And now I've added a texture, again just to the head. It's clipped to the to Spike's head. That's what the little down arrows are. And it's set to overlay. If I set it to normal, you can see it's a grungy dark texture with some lines and that in, just to fill in to match the rest of the image. That's the look that I'm going for. And it grunges up. I've grunged his forehead, his whole face rather, and his hair. Another texture, more grunge, and it's actually got a bit of pattern in it. You can see it quite grungy on his cheek, this one. And it's set to overlay as well. I set it to normal. Yeah, quite amazing what blend modes do to a layer, isn't it? So that's a JPEG at 100% opacity and normal. Stick it back to overlay, and it just blends in lovely. Now I'm using the clone tool. I just wanted to clone in a bit. There's just the hair in front of his ear, his sideburn, and his forehead. I wanted some orange and eyes to match the rest of the image, and I used the clone tool to do that. And now I'm going to put some more textures, and these are going to go over the whole layer, the whole image. The masks are white. Some of them have been masked out a little bit. This one's quite a pretty texture. I quite like it. All of these three textures all came. All of the textures came with Adobe Paper Pro, which comes with a Creative Cloud subscription for free, and comes preloaded with a selection of fly paper textures, beautiful textures. I'm just chatting about. I just realised I hadn't mentioned. Originally, my image was only so big, but I wanted to have more of Spike's head than the original model. So, the easiest way to create to increase the size of your image is to use the clone tool. The crop tool, and just drag it to the size that you want it to be. So I've just dragged it up a bit. I generally don't delete the crop pixels because I might want to change and move it around. Sometimes you need to delete your crop pixels. That just means all that background, you can see that's not highlighted outside of the cropping border is still there because I didn't delete them, and I can shift the image around or expand it and include some of that background if I wanted to. Sometimes you want to get rid of it all because you want to do other things with the edges of your image, like borders and frames and things, and you don't want those extra pixels anymore because that interferes with the overall look. And that's how I increased the size of this image again. I just added a bit extra to the top of it, and I didn't actually try and clone or blend in the old picture and the new. I just used it as part of the effect. This is my first texture. I love this texture. It's a painted look texture, all clouds and subtle hues, and I haven't masked any of it from the image. And now you can see he's starting to go gold. That's the beauty of textures and blend modes. You can change the entire colour of your image. Just reduced it to fit on. This is my next texture. It's a grungy texture, and it's a darker texture than the previous one, and I have masked out his eye. That's what that little white dot, there'll be a black spot on the mask of that layer, because I didn't want that over his eye. And you can mask out any part of the texture that you don't want to show. So now I've added back a moody quality, a dark quality. And this texture is going to give me that orange, that gold look rather. It's a lovely texture. It's great for brightening up an image. Again, I masked it off his eye, and that's all. The rest of it, it's on the image. So it's brought in some more texture and grunge, but it's also given me an absolutely brilliant gold colour. And when you're adding textures, just play with your blend modes. It gives you all sorts of different colours. As you can see, they've gone through them. Now I'm using a curves layer as an actual curves layer, so just increasing the darks a little and pulling down the highlights just a tad on that one, just to really give some subtle toning to the whole overall image. And you can see now his face, the colour of it is actually blended in quite well with the background, with his body. His head looks like it belongs there. And that's the goal of manipping, is that you want to create an image. When you've composited two images together, you want to create an image that looks like it was always that way. And I'm just pointing out that I kept the colour of his eyes and down at his lips to keep, so I can match it in with his leg, the bronze of his leg, and his hair. I wanted that to match in with the bronze. This is a colour lookup layer, and it's one I like to use, like 3-strip look. It gets in and picks up all different colours. And now we just add the bunny ears and the text, the image title. These are the blend modes that I use to create the gold look. The bunny ears were actually started out black and white, and now I'm just going to add bevel emboss contour colour overlay, a goldy orange, and a black to white gradient set to colour burn. drop the opacity to about midway. Stop. I was just having a bit of, don't keep adding gradient overlays. A little bit of texture just to give a bit of texture to the finish, so that the glow will look a bit more normal. And that's to add a glow. It's just a pale yellow to just set off and highlight and give it a bit more of a metallic look. And finally a drop shadow in it, which is black, the normal black, set to multiply 75%. And that's how I should have turned the effects off, but I didn't. But they started out sort of a black and white. And then I added the text, and I've just copied the layer effects from the ears onto the text, the title, Gold Bunny. And you do that by a quick way. You do that simply by holding down the Alt key, putting your cursor over the F and X and dragging it up onto the next layer. If you don't hold down the Alt key, you'll just drag the effects from one layer to the other, so they'll actually go off the ears and onto the title. If you hold down the Alt key, it says make a copy, or copy the effects onto wherever I drop you. And because I dropped that on, it actually had double the effects on the title. So I'm just going to back that off and add the tag, and that's it. That's creating Gold Bunny. Start with a lovely image. Thanks for watching.